Actually, we're all suffering right now. There's subtle and gross suffering. Gross suffering is obvious: sickness, death, old age, things like they cut us off, or we lose money, or we lose someone we love, and all that. That's gross suffering. Subtle suffering is not knowing that we're suffering, and not knowing the methods for suffering, and thinking that this is happiness, and continuing what we're doing. That's subtle suffering, and that suffering is much worse to pull out than gross suffering. People running around feeding the poor, people running around taking care of the sick, and that's wonderful. That's gross suffering. But that type of relief doesn't bring you to ultimate liberation. Subtle suffering is not knowing the cause of suffering, not even knowing you're suffering, suffering without knowing you're suffering. Why? Having a human body is pure suffering. It's smelly. Every day it's high maintenance. It's a lot of work. We fight. We do all kinds of things to entertain it, to make it nice. We dress it. We have to take care of it. We have to feed it. We have to wash it. And it fails us with sickness. It's very delicate. Any of the balances go off. Any of the elemental balances go off. We immediately become sick. We age. We can't control. We get fat. We're attractive, not attractive. And in the end, the body, again, becomes our biggest traitor, where it dies. So our body is not an actual object of veneration. It's not an actual object that we should rest in and be happy about. It is a method or a vehicle for us to reach a higher state. And if we view the body as that, we don't become attached. And we use the body beneficially for others. And the body becomes a cause for happiness and not suffering. Meaning, we use the body to create more causes for happiness, instead of it being a vehicle to more unhappiness. Why? We can use it negatively if we don't know what we're doing. And the worst thing, the subtle suffering, is not knowing what you're doing. Not knowing. So we live in blissful ignorance, which doesn't lead to bliss. So when we attend Dharma talks and we get knowledge, this counters that. You see, you think, but if I know all that, I'll be scared. What's the difference? The result will be the same. At least if you know, you have a chance of doing something about it. If you don't know, it's not blissful ignorance. It's ignorance, full stop. So when we see someone having very powerful karma arising, that's more than a normal type of suffering. It's not a life lesson. It's a samsara lesson. It's a lesson of samsara in all your lives. If you do negative action, that will arise, not just now, again and again and again, and worse. So it's not a life lesson, it's a samsara lesson for all lives. 1. 2, it's a result of karma ripening, opening. 3, it shows you clearly you didn't do anything about it to prevent it. Purification. And from that suffering, you'll see people do even more things that are negative as an excuse. And most of us say, yeah, that's right. He had to steal because, whatever. And that justification becomes bigger. He hurt me, that's why I hurt him. They hurt me, that's why I hurt them. And it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And we create more suffering from that suffering. So it's not a lesson unless you actually learn something. See, some people go through tremendous mental pain and problems, difficulties, and sufferings, and then they come to the Dharma. And when they come to the Dharma, they listen, they transform. So the suffering in that case is wonderful. And there's some people who have suffering and they do even worse things. Worse things. It's like that lady during Buddha's time whose only child died. Oh gosh, she was so distraught. In her arms, so distraught. This is in Buddha's biography. She went mad. She ran around everywhere asking people to revive her baby. And there was no one left. They told her about a sage who performs miracles. Siddhartha Gautama. So she found her way to his retreat, Lord Buddha's retreat, and placed the baby in front of him and said, they say you're a sage. They say you're a Buddha. They say that you are enlightened. Please bring my baby back to life because I love it. Buddha says, I will. I will bring that baby back to life. No problem. But one condition, she says, anything, I'll do anything. Find me a household that there has never been a death. She goes, okay, I'll do it. She left her baby there. She ran everywhere. Every single household. Oh, did anybody die here? Yes, my mother died. Anybody die here? My sister died. Anybody died? My uncle died. My grandmother died. And every single house, after hundreds of houses, her mind started to calm down, and she realized that she wasn't alone, and that that's a part of life, that everybody experiences that, and there's no escape, and that her sorrow is baseless. The extent of her sorrow is baseless. And her mind calmed down. And she came back to the Buddha and told him, I understand. May I please receive the Dharma? Buddha says, you're very welcome to. And taught the Dharma to her, and gave her the teachings. And in that single life, she became an arhat. One who is free from samsara, that doesn't need to take rebirth. She became an arhat because she used her sufferings in a way that turned it all around. That's a life lesson for her. So when we have sufferings, and we reciprocate the sufferings to others because we're suffering, that's not a life lesson. That's increasing more lessons for us to learn, and we might not even learn. It's very, very important. Suffering is suffering, but it should be used to cessate suffering in the future. It should be used in a way that stops all suffering, not to increase. And that's what the Dharma does for us. The Dharma tells us the truth with compassion and acceptance. With compassion and acceptance. And that's very hard to get in this world.